Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast.
And welcome to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
This is where we break down complex research on the future of work and, well, distill it into the strategic insights you really need. We treat the sources like your personal roadmap.
Today, we've got a stack of sources that all point to the same core engine of the modern economy. We're talking about the accelerating link between automation, productivity, and, economic inequality.
Right.
And we're going to focus squarely on the financial risks, but I think more importantly, the strategic opportunities this creates for modern professionals. For you.
It's a topic that really demands this kind of deep dive because historically there's a huge puzzle here. For, 2 centuries, technology meant mass prosperity.
Exactly. The steam engine, electricity.
Mass production. These things drove massive shared growth in GDP per person. Pretty much everyone saw their standard of living go up.
Right. But something changed. And that's the core tension, isn't it? The one that leading researchers like Daron Acemoglu and Pasquale Restrepo, the one they identified?
Precisely. Since about 1980, something shifted. We see this divergence.
Well, split.
Yeah. Productivity keeps climbing, but real wages, especially for workers in more routine-based jobs or with less education, they've just flatlined or even declined.
So all the gains are clustering in those higher-paid, computer-based professional roles, and the gap just gets wider.
It widens dramatically.
Okay, so our mission today is to get past the headlines. We're going to use this analysis as a compact, sort of actionable guide. We need to know, what does the data actually say is causing this?
And why does market structure, the rise of these winner-take-most companies, why does that complicate everything?
And most critically, what are the practical, proactive steps that you can actually use to protect your income and, harness this new tech for your own career advantage?
We have to look at the mechanisms, not just the symptoms. So let's jump right in and define the problem with, I think, the most critical distinction the sources make: how we're using the technology.
Okay, let's unpack that. The sources are really clear that not all automation is created equal. Understanding this seems like the first smart key for anyone worried about their job. So what are the two types?
We have to separate task automation from productivity-enhancing technology.
Okay.
So first, task automation. This is where a system is brought in just to substitute a specific existing duty. It's all about lowering payroll.
Like a company replacing a team of data entry clerks with an algorithm.
Exactly that. And the key thing is, in those cases, the overall economic output of the company or even the industry, it doesn't really jump up. It just lowers the cost of one input, labor.
Acemoglu has a term for this, right?
He does. He calls a lot of what we've seen since the late 90s socio-automation.
Socio-automation, I like that. It captures why so many new tech tools feel underwhelming, even if the CFO is happy.
That's it. It's technology that's deployed not because it creates massive new value, but just because it's cheaper than the person doing the task. And that has a huge distributional effect. It moves money from labor to capital without really making the whole economic pie any bigger.
In contrast, you have genuinely productivity-enhancing tech. That's the stuff that really lifts the total output, like the assembly line.
Right. The assembly line let one worker produce 20 times more. That's a gain that can be shared widely.
And this distinction is so important because it dictates who gets the money. It determines the income split.
It does. We need to talk about labor share versus capital share. It's simple, really. Labor share is the piece of a country's total economic output that goes to workers as wages.
And capital share is the piece that goes to owners and investors as profit.
Right. And historically, if a company's productivity went up, both shares would typically rise together. Rising productivity meant rising wages.
But with task automation, that link breaks.
It breaks. You substitute a human with a machine, but the overall productivity doesn't really get a big boost. So what happens? The labor share goes down, and the capital share just captures all the savings.
Which is why we see companies posting record profits while the median salary just stagnates.
That's the mechanism. And the divergence since the 1980s is anchored right there. It's automation that substitutes tasks without creating enough new, complementary tasks for humans.
And this isn't a small effect. The research links automation to, more than half of the rise in wage gaps since the 80s?
More than half. It's not just a side story about globalization or unions, though they play a role. Task substitution is a major structural driver.
Which brings us right to the hard data. Because the mechanism makes sense, but the numbers are pretty sobering.
They're incredibly clear. This comes directly from Acemoglu and Restrepo's work. They estimate that this task substitution, it explains roughly 50 to 70% of the growth in wage inequality between different groups from 1980 to 2016.
70%. That's a massive number. It suggests that if you took this kind of automation out of the equation, our economy would look completely different.
Vastly different. And they're confident in the causal link because their methodology is so specific. They track robot adoption and software implementation industry by industry, and they see the wage declines happen in the exact labor markets that are most exposed.
So they can draw a straight line from a robot arriving in a factory to the wages for those specific workers going down.
A direct line. Not just the headcount, but the real wages.
And for the most vulnerable group, we're not just talking about slower growth, we're talking about an actual decline in their buying power.
That's right. The data shows a real wage decline of negative 8.8% for men without a high school degree. For women in that same group, it's negative 2.3%.
Wow.
Yeah, over 3 decades. Think about what that means for a family. It means for 30 years, they've been running backward against inflation, in large part because their routine tasks were automated away.
This feeds directly into that idea of the polarization of work, which David Otter's research highlighted.
Exactly. Job growth has been concentrated at the two poles.
The high-pay analytical jobs at one end, where skills complement tech, and then the low-wage, non-routine service jobs at the other.
Your retail workers, food service, health aides.
And the middle just got hollowed out. The routine clerical and production jobs that were the bedrock of the 20th century middle class.
Those were the easiest, most predictable tasks to automate. The jobs left are either too complex for current AI, that's the high end, or they need a physical human presence and empathy, the low end.
Let's bring this back to socio-automation with that perfect example.
Yeah.
Self-checkout kiosks.
Right. A supermarket brings them in. What happens?
Cashiers get displaced. The company saves on payroll.
So its capital share goes up. But does the whole supermarket experience get dramatically better? Not usually.
No. You, the customer, are now doing the work. The line might move a little faster, but errors go up. The experience is often worse.
The quote from the source material nails it. Self-checkout does not significantly increase productivity, but does reduce labor costs and has fairly large distributional effects.
That is the key. The gains flow away from labor. And this is so crucial now as we look at how AI is accelerating these same dynamics in white-collar work.
This is where it gets very real for today's professional. Because where is AI being integrated fastest?
Digital workflows. Our workflows.
Absolutely. The research on generative AI, like GPT-4, shows that the highest exposure is in jobs that pay around $90,000 a year, and it stays high well into 6 figures.
So we're talking software developers, market analysts, lawyers, writers.
Yes, because the integration is frictionless.
Yeah.
These jobs already live in code and text. You don't need a robot, you just need an API.
But what's really interesting here is that the AI doesn't boost everyone equally. There's this counterintuitive finding, the novice advantage.
It's one of the most surprising things in the research. Corporate trials in customer support, in coding, they show that the less experienced employees, the novices, get a much bigger boost than the experts.
Wait, so the veteran who's been coding for 10 years gets less of a benefit from an AI assistant than the new hire right out of school. How does that work?
Well, the theory is that AI is an incredible leveling tool. It gives the novice the baseline knowledge, the structure, the templates that they're missing.
Ah, I see.
For an expert, the AI might handle 5% of their task. But for the novice, it handles maybe 30% of their biggest stumbling blocks. One trial at a Fortune 500 support center showed a 14% average productivity rise. But the biggest gains were clearly with the newer agents. It got them up to speed way faster.
Which has huge implications for hiring. But for you, the listener, the question isn't just, will tech replace me? It's, if I get a 14% productivity boost, who gets the value from that?
And that leads directly to the market concentration factor, the whole winner-take-most dynamic.
This is such a critical piece of the puzzle. Technology lets dominant firms, your Apples, Amazons, Googles, Microsofts, it lets them scale and dominate faster than ever.
They capture massive network effects. And that concentration fundamentally changes the power balance with labor. In a highly concentrated market, your bargaining power as a worker goes down, unless you're, top-tier talent. The company can be more productive than ever, but it doesn't have to raise wages for the average knowledge worker because there are fewer other companies to go work for.
So let me get this straight. AI boosts my performance as a white-collar worker, But if I work for a giant, dominant company, the firm is more likely to just capture that gain as profit, not give it to me as a higher wage.
That is the structural tension we need to protect against. And that brings us to the most important part of this deep dive, the strategic roadmap. How do you pivot to make sure you capture those gains?
Okay, so actionable steps. The first one has to be about skills. Actively investing in skills that complement AI.
Yes, we're moving away from pure execution and toward judgment. Your value is in becoming an expert prompter, a highly effective quality assurance specialist,
A domain expert who can spot when the AI is wrong.
and someone who's great at complex human collaboration. The stuff a machine can't do. If you're in marketing, your job isn't writing the ad copy anymore. It's asking the right strategic questions and then coordinating the team to launch the campaign.
The next step sounds really practical. The task audit.
Everyone should do this, maybe once a year. List out your daily duties and be ruthless,
Map them out. Which tasks are routine and predictable?
and which require uniquely human judgment or creativity or relationship skills. Then you aggressively shift your time and energy toward those human activities.
So you let the AI do the routine stuff, and you use that freed up time to create more value in the non-automatable areas.
That's how you build resilience. You secure your position by moving up the value chain.
And the final piece of the personal plan is, well, it's treating your career like a data analyst would. You have to measure your own productivity lift.
You absolutely have to. You should be tracking local wage trends in your sector. And when your company rolls out a new AI tool, you need to rigorously measure your time saved.
And not just time saved, right? The actual outcomes.
The positive outcomes. The higher quality, the faster turnaround. You need hard metrics for your next salary negotiation. You can't just say, I feel more productive. You have to say, because of tool X, my output is up 20%, and here's the data to prove it.
That's powerful. But this isn't all on the individual. We have to acknowledge that the broader environment company policies, government policies, they also shape who gets the gains.
For sure. For employers, responsible tech adoption means investing in training, upskilling your people so they can work with the new tools, not be replaced by them. And for policy, the old saying is true.
Technology drives growth, but policy chooses who shares the gains.
Exactly. Things like wage insurance for displaced workers, funding for AI literacy, using competition policy to prevent monopolies. These all matter. They determine if progress flows into paychecks or just gets hoarded in corporate accounts.
Okay, as we start to wrap up this deep dive, let's just nail down the core message. Technology, long-term, lifts living standards.
It always has. But how it's deployed, whether it's that so-automation that just cuts costs, or a genuine enhancement that creates new human-led value that determines who benefits now.
The real risk isn't some dramatic robot takeover. It's the slow, steady erosion of value for any work that's routine.
And that demands proactive preparation. You've had to build optionality in your career, keep your skills fresh, and maintain a steady learning pace.
And we have one final provocative thought for you to take away from this. You need to focus less on the pilot programs where tech is just assisting you.
And more on the signal of a full task takeover.
What do you mean by that?
When a company goes from testing AI that helps an agent draft an email to launching a system that handles the entire interaction from start to finish with no human, that's the critical signal.
When the pilot moves to full end-to-end deployment.
That's when the question is no longer how fast does the tech work, but who owns the gains.
And you need to watch that transition. Watch the error rates, the latency, the amount of human oversight that's still required. When that oversight drops to zero, that is the clearest signal of income impact in your field.
That's the moment the value permanently shifts from labor to capital. That's the line to watch.
Thank you for tuning in to the SmartKeys podcast. We hope this deep dive into automation and inequality gives you the strategic insights you need to navigate and, well, thrive in the future of work.
We really encourage you to read the full article, Automation and Inequality, Preventing Tech from Widening the Wealth Gap. It's got the comprehensive roadmap we discussed today.
The link is in the show notes. And remember to subscribe to the SmartKeys podcast for more deep dives on the future of work. We'll see you next time.